Monza it is then for tonight's race. Welcome back to Revolution Tier 3 Season 13. And it was time for round 14 of the season, the mystery race, including a sprint race as well. So it looks like we're going to be racing at Monza. Unfortunately, a little lower numbers than usual, but I reckon it's still going to be a lot of fun around a track like this. Look at the sunny skies up above as we head in towards sprint qualifying. Last week we saw our champion being crowned at Suzuka. It was Alpha Hype Wall with 2 rounds to go. But the Constructors' Championship is still up for grabs. Because the gap between Alpine and Kicksauber is 21 points, to be precise. Okay, just gonna put the live stream in channel, and then we'll get started with this sprint race. Sprint qualifying, at least. There we go then. 10 drivers in at the moment for sprint qualifying, which is 12 minutes long. A bit shorter than usual, shorter than the usual 18 minutes of qualifying that we're going to have that later on as well. So we're probably going to see some drivers going out on the mediums first and save their sets of softs until the very end of sprint qualifying. Going out early is Balabotan, and so is Twitch Jerry just ahead of him. And there you can see the mediums underneath the Haas. Balabotan going out immediately on the softs though. Who knows what kind of tire allocation he has chosen for Monza. I don't think Monza is necessarily harsh on tire wear. But it's still something you have to take into account at every track on this game. But the Aston Martin of Balabotan, he's going to be the first one to start his final lap in a few moments' time. Also out of the track now is Ozan in the Red Bull. And a few more drivers joining him. Alpha Hype Wall, our new Tier 3 champion, going out, and just behind him is Shark in the Mercedes. Was caught up in a few incidents last week at Suzuka. Let's hope that he's going to have a little bit better time tonight. As I see Balabotan cutting across the grass there a little bit. And Balabotan going in immediately after only his outlap. So maybe he will go out on those mediums. So that means that Ozan, or Twusterby, is in fact the first driver to set a lap time as he goes into the second chicane. Delaroche chicane, I think it is. Turns 3 and 4, if I'm not mistaken. Or 4 and 5, as he runs out slightly wide through the second Lesmo. And DRS will open for the second time around this track. 2 DRS zones, one at the start-finish straight and one going towards the Ascari chicane. Left, right and left again. And now one final straight towards what used to be called the Parabolica. The final corner here at Monza. think it's called Curva Michele Barretto nowadays, but many people still refer to it as Parabolic as Towards the rebounds. The final corner, let's see what this first lap time on the board is going to be at 20.0 on those mediums. Just behind is Ozan in the Red Bull, but he seems to be going back in pit lane immediately. So he will not be finishing his lap as Panda now has joined the session to make it 11 for the sprint qualifying Alpha Hype wall. Then what can he do? Can he go any quicker than Toursteri on his first initial run? Let's see. As he crossed the line, he certainly can. 19.179, and he beats Toursteri by exactly 9/10 of a second. Shark goes in between the two with a 19.7, a couple of tenths behind, and all three of them having done their lap on the medium. As Robbie going towards the final corner in one of the two McLarens we've got right now. And he is going to cross the line for a 19.6 to put himself on the front row. I saw Auburn had invalidated his run somewhere to the left. Jaden has started a lap as well, and so has Balaboton going now down the start-finish straight and towards the first chicane. This time on the mediums. Looking to save that soft set until the very end of sprint qualifying. Jaden now making his way through the two Lesmos and out on the second DRS straight with a little kink to the left hand side going under the bridge of the oval layout that was used in the very early years of Monza back in the 50s and maybe even in the 60s I think as well. So yellow flags in the back. I think Armel has run out of fuel, which is why it shows yellow flag on the mini map. But we're going to wait and see until Jaden crosses the finish line to set his banker lap. Is it going to be underneath 20s? Not quite, 20.1 and a few hundredths of a second behind Toursteri. What about Balaboton though, the man who's been on pole position 2 or 3 times this season already? I'm going to have to check that to be sure. But at least twice, but maybe even 3 times, as he is going to cross the line for a 19.5 on his first outing. He's still a good 4/10 of a second behind Alpha Hype Wall, who set a very blistering lap time, like you said, on his first run. But here comes Toursteri going quicker on the mediums as well, with also a 119.1, and he is now half a tenth clear of Alpha Hype Wall, but only with just under 5 minutes to go. Needs to get back in the garage as soon as possible to still have a go in the final few minutes of qualifying to put on a brand new set of softs and see what you can do. Ozan at the moment still without a lap time. We saw him putting into the pit lane earlier after his out lap on the mediums. Now he's back out on track and looking to set a lap time once more as he goes towards the Ascari chicane. 2 Red Bulls still without a lap time, but it's 3 pole positions this season for Balaboton. Could he make it a 4th one? Although that is not going to be decided in this particular session. That will be decided in main qualifying later on after the sprint race. But still, as Ozan crosses the line for a 19.8, just behind Shark, just ahead of Jaden. Lennon's in P8 with a 20.2. Not a great lap time at all for the McLaren driver. But with 3.5 minutes remaining, he should be able to get back into the pit lane and go out in a few moments time, which is what Shark is already doing. And Ozan, he just had a lap time on the mediums, but I don't think he'll be in the pit lane in time to go out for another run on the softs. Only just over 3 minutes remaining. Might be very, very tight for the Red Bull driver, currently in 6th place. to be able to do that final run on the softs. Shark has gone out on the softs. See the entire top 8, their best lap times all on those mediums. Jesus, Panda and Arbon still without a lap time. Choosing to only do one run and potentially save a set of mediums for later on during the sprint race or the main race. But let's see what Shark can do. Can he beat Tour's Terry's lap time? He should be able to. Having the tire advantage now, but he needs to find at least 0.6 of a second to get near the time of the Haas. Just behind that is Balabotan getting some wheel spin out of the first chicane, as he's on his outlap on the softs as well, and so is Alpha Hype Wall in the Alpine. And already a 1/10 of a second gained for Shark through sector 1 as he goes through the Delaware chicane. Now into the two Lesmos. Tight to the inside, keep it within the white lines on the exit. And you're gonna have to do it again. He misses the apex ever so slightly there through the second Lesmo. Don't think he lost too much time with that. Let's see how much time he has gained. Still just over a 1/10 of a second, 1.5. 166 to be precise. But at the moment that is not going to be enough to get near the likes of Tour Sterling and Alpha Goal. He might be able to get ahead of Balabot and put himself on the second row. But Tour Sterling and Alpha Ball definitely out of reach here in qualifying. Ozan, he is going back out, but he's got 1 minute and 25 seconds. It is going to be an extremely quick outlap for the Red Bull. 1 minute and 21, and the lap time around here is around 1 minute 20. So, well, he's going to have to do a rapid outlap to be able to get himself back there. As Sharky's crossed the line for a 19.4, and as expected, has put himself in P3. Balabotan and Alpha Hype Wall now starting their final runs as well. And so is Arbon right behind in the Red Bull. And basically everyone out on track, but it's going to be interesting to see if Ozan is going to be able to get towards the finish line in time. Only 45 seconds remaining on the clock. I don't think he's going to be able to make that, unfortunately for him. He might have to settle for 6th place at best. And now Balabotan coming onto the second DRS straight. He needs to find around half a second to beat Tour Sterry, and he's up by 3/10 going in towards the Ascari chicane. But he invalidates in the middle of the chicane on the second corner to the right. Just ran out a little bit too wide. And that is an invalidation for Balabotan. He will be P4 at best. What about Alpha Hype Wall behind? He has not invalidated. But is he going to be quick enough to beat Tour Sterry? Only needs to find half a 10th of a second. The flag has fallen and Ozan somehow has made it. It seems like Balabotan is the first to take the flag. Here comes Alpha Hype Wall and he goes quick. It's 18.719. He's ahead of Tour Sterry by 4/10 of a second. Who himself is up by 1.5 tenths. As we now see Arbon to cross the line in the Red Bull for a 19.0 onto the front row for the Red Bull. What about Jaden then in the Ferrari? And Tour Sterry right behind. Jaden stays in 8th place. Tour Sterry then, is he going to be able to get ahead of Arbon at least? No, he's not. He missed out massively in the final sector. Lost over 2/10 of a second. Jesus in P5. And Lennons has gone up to P4 with a 19.4. Then it's his teammate Frobby just behind. Shark is still on the run as well by improving by a quarter of a second through the middle part, so he might be able to get himself a few places up the order. What about Frobby as he is going to cross the line? P4 ahead of his teammate. What a lap from the McLaren. Onto the second row he goes, but still there's Shark and Ozan following very closely behind, and Panda for his first lap time. He is going to go to the second place. Panda, what a lap. 18.9, and a huge surprise for the Alpine. Shark goes P4, Ozan crossed the line as well. Did he find any time in the end? P6 it is for the Red Bull driver, so a good time gained as well. But it's an Alpine front row here for the sprint race, and a huge surprise there by Panda. What a brilliant lap from him in the end on his only lap here in sprint qualifying. 89.11. Not going to say that many more times, but wow, Alpha Hype Wall, he is going to be lining up on pole position in the sprint race by 2/10 of a second ahead of his teammate Arbon in P3, and then it's Shark in the Mercedes. Those two had an incident last week at Suzuka. Hopefully That is not going to happen tonight. Tousteri in P5 on his best lap was only on those mediums. Then it's also on the 2 McLaren 7 and 8. Jesus in 9. Ballabot on P10 and Jaden will start the sprint race from 11th place. Now we get to prepare ourselves for the sprint race. And let's see how this is going to unfold then. Because Monza, well, very easy to overtake around. Going to have long DRS trains for basically the entirety of the race. At least in the sprint. Of course, with strategies, it might be a bit more spread out in the main race. But for the sprint race, it's going to be all about staying within the DRS train. And not getting yourself a 3-second time penalty. That is going to be important as well, because it's easy to do around the track like this. I think it's going to be mediums for everyone. In fact, Froby and Jesus both opting for the hards. So they definitely have went for the hard of tire allocation. And are going for the one stop later on in the main race or medium hards, but I don't think tire wear's that high around Monza. Medium hards should be very doable around 50% race, or hards mediums, doesn't matter either way. Either strategy can work around there, although you have to be being in that DRS train is going to be crucial. And if you pit a lot later from hards to mediums, then you might drop behind and will be unable to close the gap back again towards the leading DRS train. But we are going to get ready quite soon for the sprint race. Is it going to be another victory for Alpha Hype Wall? Not too sure actually who won the other sprint race we had this season. What the Belgian Grand Prix? It was Balabotan who won the sprint race in Belgium. His only win, well, it's not exactly a win, but the only time he stood on the top step, because besides that, I don't think he's been on the podium yet this season. No, he has not. So only that sprint race win so far for the Aston Martin, who's going to start down in P10 due to his invalidation. That is how far he has dropped towards everyone else around him. But here we go then. It's the 5 red lights for the sprint race here at Monza. And the lights are out. And the 2 Alpines are going to lead the way towards turn 1. Alpha Hype Wall ahead of Panda. Then it's Arbon in P3. We go side by side towards turn 1 with a great start from Alpha Hype Wall, who's going to try and lead. Going in towards turn 1. Lock up behind. And then a Shark sending one to the inside. Going in towards the first chicane. There was contact made. Arbon takes the advantage of that in the background. Going off is Lennons and Balabotan on the exit of turn 2. Both into the gravel trap. Bit chaotic opening stage of this race. Alpha Hype Wall already with a 1.1 second lead towards Arbon, but it was Shark with a very optimistic send going in towards turn 1, making contact with Panda, who in the process has dropped down to P5 and 6 now, as he ran out wide through the second chicane and down towards P7. There was contact, big contact going into the first lap, but what has happened there between himself and Froby? That was a really strange moment between the Alpine and the McLaren, and all his good work in sprint qualifying has become undone, because Panda now has dropped all the way down to P9 and outside the points for the sprint race. Jaden finds himself in 6th place from 11th on the grid with a few positions gained, but just allowed within DRS range still of Ozan, something that Arbon is going to try to do as well towards Alpha Hype Wall as we go on to the second lap of this race. In a few moments time the gap is still 1.1, but the Red Bull driver is trying to get closer towards the Alpine to have that DRS later on in this lap. It's Alpha Hype Wall who leads the way after the opening lap with a clean start from him for our championship leader. I said championship leader, but he's already crowned champion last race. Jesus and Panda are going side by side going in towards turn 1. The Alpine is going to go the long way around the outside, and it's a great move there from Panda, who puts himself up into 8th place and back inside the points. but around a second behind Frobby in 7th place. He's going to need to get himself back within DRS range to not get straight overtaken once again back from Jesus in the Williams. It seems like Alpha Highball is able to manage the gap towards Arbon. It's still 1.1 as we go through the middle sector, and it's no DRS for the Red Bull. It is for the Mercedes, and it is for the Haas as well. And the other Red Bull doesn't have the DRS either. With Jaden, Frobby and Panda in hot pursuit to try and find a way past quite soon. Looks like some connection issues there for Panda. Might have caused the contact with Frobby on the opening lap in towards his first Lesmo. As we go on to lap 3 in this race, the gap's 1.2 between our 2 race leaders, Shark and now Tour Sterling, set at the fast lap of the race. Here comes Shark in the Mercedes, are going to try and find a way past Arbon going in towards turn 1, but he doesn't go for it just yet, stays behind for the time being. And Tour Sterling following closely as well, over the 2-second gap now towards Ozon, but he's maintained his position down the start-finish straight. But those drivers behind him are getting a lot closer now. With this big train towards Lennon's in P10. Not sure, well, we saw Balaboten going off in the first chicane of the opening lap. And ever since he's dropped outside the DRS range. He's 2.5 seconds behind in P11. But of course he still has got the main races all out of shape once again. Now through the second chicane. 1.2 seconds once more. It must be getting really frustrating for Arbon to just be without. We'll have the Alpine just be without out of reach there. Pushing to get himself within DRS range, but just not quite able to. And we see a nice shot here of Shark chasing the Red Bull down the back straight. Well, one of 2 back straights as we go towards the final corner. Now the gap's 1.5. So Arbon must have used quite a bit of battery to try and stay close to the Alpine, but here comes Shark now with the help of DRS. He's going to pull to the outside, and it's an easy overtake for the Mercedes to put himself into 2nd place. And he is now going to try and chase after Alpha Highball, which might help out Arbon as well. As Jaden in the background goes up at the P5. What a race it's been so far. Oh, and there's contact in the background. That is Ozon getting tagged around through turns 1 and 2. And he's now dropped down to P8 as Panda made his way up to P6, getting past Frobby. But who was it that made contact with Ozon? Either way, he's dropped down to P9 outside the points now as we go side by side in towards chicane. That is Jesus making contact there with Frobby as well. On the apex, the McLaren has to go straight on. Through goes Ozon now, trying to get along around the outside of the McLaren as well. Back in towards 7th place with a double overtake. And beautiful stuff from the Red Bull as there's a big fight in the background. And it's Frobby dropping behind like a stone. Does he have any damage, I wonder? As he's down to P10 and outside of DRS range. As Twooch picks up a 3-second time penalty. He's the first one to do so, but fortunately for him, the gap to the car behind is around 2.8 seconds and nearing 3 seconds. So don't think he is going to be having to worry about that, about losing his 4th place. But look at this then. The gap at the front, 0.6 of a second now. Alpha Highball has lost his entire lead. It's now down to 0.6, and Shark with the help of DRS, he's brought Arbon with him as well. So it's turning into a 3-way fight there in the sprint race. Only 5 laps to go though. But it is getting spicier at the front. As in the background, more fighting going on. And it's Jesus trying to find a way past. He's got past Ozon. Here comes Lennon's up the inside as well. Oh, and outbrake there. As Jesus made a bit of a mistake under braking. Might have been a bit of a reaction towards Lennon's, who was lining up a move to the inside. Either way, the McLaren goes through into 7th place. And Jesus drops back down to 8th. The only driver to be on the hards here in the sprint race. And he seems to be struggling a little bit as well. And it's Ozon who was dropped back down towards P9, where he was on the previous lap and under pressure from Frobby. And yellow flags in the background. It looks like Balaboten has had a spin in the Delamarche chicane. And not a great sprint race for him, that is for sure. And 3-second time penalty for Panda. He's got past Jaden. but with that 3-second time penalty, he might lose out towards the likes of Lennons, Jesus and Ozan, although the gap is around 2 seconds between Jaden and Lennons. Still Jaden in a very handy position, it must be said, in the sprint race for the first time this season, finding himself inside the top 6. And might be getting some good points after getting his first top 10 of the season last week at Suzuka. And he's looking for some more points tonight here at Monza. Of course, what helps is there is a lot less drivers racing tonight, as we see Jesus and Lennons once again wheel to wheel in towards turn 1, but the McLaren is able to be later on the brakes and go around the outside, and once again it's a big snap of oversteer on the exit of turn 2, and Jesus is now under pressure from Ozan again. I thought for a moment he was going to be able to get ahead of Lennons, but clearly he doesn't quite have the confidence around this track here with the setup, and he seems to be struggling here in 8th place, whilst the gap towards Jaden has now grown to 2.5 seconds, which is great news for Panda. Might only lose out 1 position in the end due to his 3-second time penalty. And once again, that is Valabodon going around in the second chicane, not enjoying his time at all here around Monza. Meanwhile, the fight at the front is getting closer. Now it is 4 tenths separating Alpha High Wall and Shark as we go on towards lap 7 of 9. 3 laps to go in this race. And is Shark going to be close enough? I don't think he is. Look how much Alpha High Wall is able to drive away coming out of the final corner, and Shark is unable to close anything towards the Alpine, who is definitely running a low downforce setup, but you would expect everyone is around Monza, around 100 rings. Probably quite common around this track, or something like that, 2-0. But it seems like Alpha Ball does have the straight line speed advantage at this stage. Or he might be able to use a little bit more battery, but look how much Alpha Shark is able to close up in that second chicane. It's now 2-3 tenths of a second as Valabodon has retired from the sprint race. It's no surprise seeing the Aston Martin pull out early. 3 tenths of a second. Shark is getting closer and closer, potentially lining up a move going on towards lap 8. But he would need to be a little bit closer than 4 tenths of a second. Or, what also could be the case, is that he's waiting for the final lap of the race to make his move. And the gap is 3 seconds, 3 tenths of a second. And that is very wide there from Alpha High Wall, as he clipped the curb on the outside, and now Shark is within striking distance. But he is going to wait. He is not going to go for the move just yet. And he will wait until the final lap of this race. Top 3 very close together in their fight. To Sterby, he's lost a lot of time as well. And this might be a 4th place upcoming for Jaden here, as the 2 cars in front of him both having a 3-second time penalty, and Jesus full 2 seconds behind. He will not be under threat from the Williams, who still is having to defend against Lennons, Ozan and Froby for the final couple of points in the sprint race. But what a result it would be for Jaden in the Ferrari. 7 tenths of a second between Alpha High Wall and Shark, so Shark has lost out a little bit. Let's see if he's going to be able to get any closer in this final sector. Still 6-7 tenths of a second between our 2 race leaders, and it's Arbon who is very close to the back of Shark, who might be able to have a go, potentially going on to the final lap of this race. Shark has lost quite a bit of time towards the Alpine as we come out of the final corner. The gap is around 5 tenths of a second between our 2 race leaders, and now it is the time to deploy that battery. Use the DRS and the slipstream. Shark is going to get closer towards Alpha High Ball, but is he going to be close enough as we go in towards turn 1 on the final lap of the sprint race? No moves being made in towards the first chicane, and Shark staying behind in 2nd place. There's one more DRS straight around this track, and one more opportunity into the final corner as well, if you have the battery to deploy. But at the moment it seems like Alpha High Wall is doing enough to maintain the lead here in the sprint race. Only a handful of corners remain for our freshly crowned world champion in Tier 3. Shark once again will have the DRS. But the DRS, the straight's a little bit too short, or is it? As he's closing the gap towards Alpine, and we're going to go side by side in towards chicane. Not quite, he's going to back off from that. He thinks the better of it, knowing it could only end with both of them in the wall potentially. If you try to go side by side and send one to the inside, in towards chicane. And I think that is all she wrote for the sprint race, because Alpha High Ball, he is going to go in towards the final corner here at Monza. And from pole position, led the way all the way towards the end. And Alpha High Ball wins the sprint race here at Monza. Shark in second place, Arbon in P3. The top three very close to each other. And the fight is certainly there for the main race later on as well. In the end, Jesus seems to have got ahead of Jaden on the final lap and is picking up that 4th place. But still a very good top 5 result for Jaden in P5. But some great racing here around Monza already. And well done to Alpha High Ball, the winner of the sprint race. Lennon's in P6 in the end, 2-Sterry and Panda 7 and 8 due to their penalties. Ozan in P9 and Frobby in 10th place. Neither of them getting any points though. And of course Ballaboten our only retirement 2-Sterry with the fastest lap though. But you don't get a point for that in the sprint race. That's the end then of the sprint event. And now we move on to the main course. Short qualifying and the 50% race like we usually have this season. Still no sight of wet weather as we prepare for qualifying. So here we are then, 18 minutes of qualifying. Going out early is one of the Red Bulls. We're going to find out quite soon. And I believe all of these drivers are only going to have 2 sets of softs to use. Maybe a medium set. So we might only see 2 laps being done. 2 runs, as it is Arbon first out on track. And he is on the softs. And looking to get the fast lap in early. Be at the top of the table for a brief moment. He wants his screen time. He's going to get it now. For sure, let's get him some appreciation. After what have been tough times over the last 7 days, but he's out on track, not the only one. Ballaboten joining him here at Monza, but like I suspected, we're not going to see a lot of cars out on track in the early stages. Who knows if he can get pole position? He was quite close in the sprint race, only a few tenths. 10 or 2 I think it was, towards Alpha High Ball in the end. But he is going to start his first flying lap here in qualifying. And let's see what it's going to be for our race winner at the Hungarian Grand Prix for the first time in 6 seasons. Is he going to be able to replicate that? He's definitely shown the pace. Not too sure if he's running with no assists tonight. He's told me that he is switching over to no assists, which basically means no line, because before he wasn't using any of the traction control or the ABS. If he is, then it is very impressive what he has shown so far. because the pace is definitely there. 52.4 after the second sector. Not sure how that is going to be comparing, how that is going to compare to the likes around him. Balabotan is going to be a good comparison, because we know that he can be quick in qualifying. And though he unfortunately invalidated in sprint qualifying on his final run. But here comes Arbon towards the line, and it's going to be a 19.2 to start off with. We've seen an 18.7 in sprint qualifying, so he's around half a second off at the moment. And it's a 52.5 for Balabotan, so he's around a tenth of a second off in the middle sector. So I reckon it's going to be quite close between those two. As the Aston Martin goes towards the final corner. Hopefully has a bit of a better time compared to the sprint race. It's going to be a 19.0 then for Balabotan, and he's ahead by 0.2 of a second. And then we see Jaden 52.8 in the middle sector. Of course, he was around 1.2 seconds behind in sprint qualifying, so don't expect him to be at the front. But the pace he has shown in the sprint race is looking quite good regardless, of course. In the races is where you score a lot of points, not in qualifying. Well, 1 point in qualifying, but many more in the races. 19.9 for Jaden, putting him in P3 right now. And just behind is Lennons in the McLaren, about to start his first flying lap. And how is he going to be able to compare himself towards Balabotan and Arbon? Also out on track now is Shark, who placed second in the sprint race. Of course, we saw that front row for Alpine with Panda in second in sprint qualifying. Let's see if he's going to be able to replicate that, and his teammate as well. Of course, Alpha Highball, can he go for back-to-back pole positions tonight here at Monza? Who knows? One of the few drivers who have managed an 18. So we wait and see what Lennons does in the second sector. 52.7. That is more comparable to Jaden's time, who did a 52.9. So I think he will be in between Arbon and Jaden, it seems like. As the McLaren driver goes towards the final corner to round off his lap time. A little bit of understeer mid-corner, but hasn't lost too much time with that, and it's going to be a 19.8 to put himself in P3. And up next is Shark and the Mercedes. We're all going one by one after each other, it seems. So now Toursteri is going to go out on lap, so he's going to be next on after Shark. At least gives us a consistent show, which is of course nice to see. But now it's the Mercedes of Shark. Going to put himself inside the top 3 once again. Made a bit of contact in the sprint race at the start, but in the end overtook Arbon and tried to chase after Alpha Highball. Got very close, but just not quite close enough to fully go for the move. It was Alpha Highball who took the win. As he is going to go towards the second sector. What is he going to do? 53.0. And that is quite far off. At the moment, behind Jaden it would be, or around Jaden's time, or Lennon's time. He's going to get a slightly slipstream there towards the final corner, but not too much. But maybe he's on a used set of softs, I don't know. I don't think you have a used set of softs in qualifying. We're going to find out what his time is going to be in 19.5. Oh, what a great final sector then. He must have saved up some battery then for the final 2 straights, which is why he might have been a little bit slower in the first 2 parts of the lap. But in the end, a 19.5, 3/10 ahead of Lennons. Alpha High Wall starts his flying lap, and so does Twoosterry behind. Panda also out on track. We're still waiting for Jesus, Ozan and Froby to go out. Kick Sauber is not racing tonight, meaning that Alpine has a very good chance of securing the Constructors' Championship. Because they are at the moment 21 points ahead of Kick Sauber, and they already gained a couple of points in the sprint race, 8 for Alpha and Bull, and 1 or 2 for Pandas, already 9-10 points gained. And they need to be ahead by 45 to win it tonight. So, well, if Alpha and Bull does the exact same thing in the main race, they should be able to wrap it up here at Monza. But he's going to go towards the finish line. Let's see if he's going to be able to beat Balabotan's time. I think he is, what, 18.8 already on his rank lap. Great lap time. And 0.2 of a second ahead of Balabotan. Twoosterry in P3 with him once again in 19.1. Very close towards his lap time in sprint qualifying. And Panda unfortunately has invalidated. Was on a 52.7. So a decent first 2 halves of his lap. But he's going to have to go again later on. So we have just over 8 minutes remaining here in qualifying. Or is he going to start on a lap? I don't know. I don't think he's got the battery to do so. No, he hasn't. 19.2. It would have been just behind Arbon in P5. Ozan is out on track in the second Red Bull. Looks like Jesus and Froby might be going for only one run. In the meantime, Shark has improved his time from a 19.5 to a 19.1, sitting now just behind Twoosterry on the second row. But he has jumped Arbon in the Red Bull. .1 seconds separating the top 7 who have set a lap time so far. And let's see where Ozan is going to be among those times. He goes towards the final corner to start his first flying lap. He was a bit tight on time in sprint qualifying when he completed his second run a little bit too late, and he was just about to start his flying lap in time after going out after pit lane with around 1 minute and 20 or 30 seconds remaining. This time I think he has timed it a little bit better, at least, to be a bit more comfortable going into the final run. 26.2 in sector 1. I think a few tenths off Alpha High Wall at the top. Not too sure what he said in the middle sector, the Alpine. But you should be in the 52s after the second sector. We're going to find out what Ozan will be on as he crosses the line. 52.5, I want to ask for an invite, then I will send him one. I didn't check the Discord constantly, so I'll get him into the session, which makes it 12 drivers and a second driver for Aston Martin. So Ozan is going to cross the line for a 19.5, just behind his teammate, just ahead of Lennon's. And we're also still waiting for Michael to join. Yes, thank you very much. Well, Ozan, that is certainly not allowed, I'll tell you that. Cutting across, he doesn't even have to with 5 minutes remaining. But that might be a penalty coming his way. Because you're not allowed to cut in qualifying. Well, not like that. Just blatantly go flat out through the turn 1 and 2 chicane. And Panda, he is in P3. He just improved. I missed it, but he improved to P3 on the second row. And he's only 2.5 tenths of a second behind his teammate. So a great lap once again from Panda, who might help his teammate out to win the Constructors' Championship tonight. Well, if he does, it would be nice, since he's already on the poster for the Constructors' Champion. It's been a bit of a one-man team, Alpine. If you look at the standings, Alpine have got themselves 213 points, and out of those 213, 203 have been scored from Alpha Hypeball. I haven't seen Aaron in the session yet, so I'll invite him again in case he needs another one. Hopefully he's going to join soon. Because we only got 3 minutes to go, and otherwise he will not be able to pick a setup. Oh well, he can at the beginning of the race, but he won't be able to start the race. So he won't have a setup. His teammate, Balabodon, is out on track and is the first one to do so. And here is the Aston Martin of Balabodon to a tough time in the sprint race and sprint qualifying. And he is going to start his flying lap, his final one, to try and get himself ahead of Alpha Hypeball. And he's up by almost 2 tenths of a second already through the first sector, so that's a great start to his lap. Just needs to keep it within the track limits, and Aaron finally has joined, so good to have him around as well in the second Aston Martin. But he's not going to be able to do a lap, but he should be able to get himself a setup and participate at the beginning of the race. But Balabodon looking quite quick on this lap. Let's see how it translates through in the middle sector. And it's going to be 52.3, and he's up still by just under 2 tenths of a second. Has kept it within the white lines this time though, through the Ascari chicane. And it might be very close between himself and Alpha Hypeball when it comes to the final time. He needs to find a few hundredths of a second in the final sector to be able to beat the Alpine as he comes around the final corner. Looks clean from Balabodon as he is going to cross the line. Is it going to be quick enough as he cross the line? Yes, it is. 18.765, and he beats Alpha Hypeball by 4 hundredths of a second. And now it is his turn to start his flying lap. And here he comes down the start-finish straight. He needs to find 44 thousandths of a second to be able to beat Balabodon to get himself onto a second consecutive pole position of the night. Looking quite decent through the first chicane. As Jaden starts his lap, Terry does as well in the background. And look at that, 74 thousandths up already through the first sector, so he's already on target to beat. But oh, invalidation for Alpha Hypeball through the second chicane. Just got across a little bit too much, and it's not going to be a pole position for our champion of this season. It might be a fourth one though for Balabodon if there is no one else around him to beat the Aston Martin. Terry is on the lap. Let's see what he will be able to do. Jaden in the Ferrari is going to be the first one to cross the line next. As coming out of the second sector, up by a few tenths of a second, I think. And now going towards the final quarter, the flag has fallen. Alpha Wall into the pit lane. Balabalton has finished his lap as well. Let's see what Jaden is going to be able to do from P9 as he crossed the line. And he goes up one position ahead of Lennons in P8. But what about Fuchs-Terry? Oh, he's invalidated as well in the middle sector. Not going to be improvement for him either, it seems. Lennons also with an invalidation. What about Jesus then on his first and only lap here in qualifying? And it's going to be P7 for the two-time champion. Ozon behind has invalidated. Lennons behind has invalidated. And it's Arbon and Shark who are up next to improve. Here comes the Red Bull towards the finish line. And Arbon, 18.9, misses out by just under 2/10 of a second. Shark in P4 improves, but is 2/10 off. And what about Panda then? As that is... Froby going up to P4, but a great final lap as well. Look how close it is between the top 5, 2/10 of a second separating it. But Panda is looking quite good as well, almost 2/10 up in the middle part of the lap. Can he produce anything special here around Monza as he is going to cross the line? And what is it going to be? Pole position for Panda in the end. Did I see that right? We're going to wait for the confirmation. Yes, it is. Panda is on pole position. Is that Alpine on pole position? Not the one you would think. But what a lap from Panda in the end. That came out of absolutely nowhere. And an 18.552. What a final sector. And what a brilliant performance from Panda. Look at that. As 2/10 clear of Balaboten, then Alpha Hype Wall. But wow, what a brilliant lap from Panda. Absolutely amazing. And he is going to line up on pole position here in Tier 3 tonight. As we see our final qualifying results, his teammate is going to be in P3, and it's Balaboten in between the two, who is missing out on his 4th pole position of the season. And now we can prepare ourselves for the race. I don't think Aaron has he got into a car yet. I'm not too sure if he is. I haven't seen him in the Aston Martin yet. Yes, he is, but he is in the Ferrari. We'll store that after the race. It depends on where he finishes. Because he was originally in the Aston Martin, of course. That's the team he races for in Tier 5. So I'm sure the points will go towards Aston Martin in the end. But quite a surprising end to qualifying, it must be said. And it is a double Alpine pole position. But Alpha won the sprint race, but this Red Panda 74 snatching away pole position for the main race. Let's hope he has a little bit more luck at the start. Of course, he got hit by Shark in the sprint race and dropped down the order down to 7th place, I think it was, after he cut across the second chicane as well. Strategy-wise, I think it's going to be an easy one-stop, mediums to hards or hards to mediums. Right now, the majority looks to be starting on the hards, but we see a few more drivers switching over to the mediums for the tar they are going to be starting on. Of course, we take a few minutes between qualifying and the race so that everyone can get their setup sorted, get their strategy sorted before we can go to the 5 red lights and get round 14 of the season underway, the penultimate race of the season. Next week it's going to be the season finale at Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix, so my home race to round off the season. So a few more drivers looking to start on the mediums. Quite a mixed grid at the moment, with 5 of them on the mediums, 6 of them, or 7 of them on the hards. It's gonna make up for an interesting race for sure. But here we go then. The 5 red lights for the Italian Grand Prix for the mystery race. Here, Revolution Tier 2, the lights are out immediately. And we get going here at Monza. Panda is going to lead the way off the line with Balaboton in hot pursuit in second place. And it's Alpha Ball in P3 as we go steaming towards the first chicane. Let's hope it's not going to be any drama in towards that corner. There's a bit of a yellow flag in the background. Someone must have gone off, and it's Jesus in the Williams who got across the grass on the inside of turn 1. And he's dropped down the order down to P12, but it's Panda leading the way ahead of Balaboton and Alpha Wall in first, second and third, Arbor in P4, then it's Robbie in P5, just ahead of Shark. And then Woester in 7th and Ozan Lennons. Jaden rounding out the top 10, but Arbon already a position gained due to Jesus having a moment through the first corner. But it looks like we've all made it through cleanly, except for Jesus, but no damage done, at least on the opening lap so far. Balaboton already quite close to the back of the Alpine, and Alpine sandwich is what he is right now. And of course, coming on to lap 2, DRS will be enabled. And is he going to go for the opportunity immediately to try and get ahead? Alpha Wolf, did he had a moment out of a story? He dropped behind Arbel now and is down to P4. So maybe some problems there for Alpha Wolf. Not sure what happened to him. Might have clipped the curb potentially through the Ascara chicane. So we go on to lap 2. DRS now has been enabled, of course not yet down the start-finish straight, but it will be later on in the lap. And for the remainder of the race as well. And it's a big train of cars with the entire top 12 within DRS range as it stands. And look at those strategies. Froby on the softs, which is quite an interesting strategy, quite an unusual strategy. You don't normally see drivers starting on the softs, especially not in this game where tire wear is usually quite high and the softs die down after a few laps. So, well, it's going to be interesting to see how many laps he's going to be able to do on these softs before he fully drops off the pace and drops behind the top 4 ahead of him. The majority of the drivers at the back are on the mediums, or on the hards, and are on the mediums in between in 11. Look at that then, 0.2 of a second separating our two race leader. Balabout, and look how close he is underneath the rear wing of Panda, going in towards the final corner. Not going to go for the move just yet, but he will be lining up one down the start-finish straight. But was he a little bit too close to the Alpine? Because he's lost a bit of time in the dirty air. That's now under a bit of pressure from Arbon as well. So we go down the start-finish straight. DRS being enabled for the Aston Martin as we go towards turn 1. He's going to send one to the inside, in towards the Rettifidio chicane, and Balabotan is going to take the lead of this race on to lap 3, with Panda dropping a position down to second place, but he just needs to stay within DRS range, and he will be able to have the opportunity to re-overtake on a later stage of this race. But Balabotan is our new race leader, and in pursuit of his first ever race win in Tier 3. His first official race win. Of course, he won the sprint race at Spa. Oh, and going wide in the background is Panda in the first Lesmo. And now he has dropped behind 1.2 seconds towards Balabotan. He's not got the DRS. This is exactly what Balabotan need. In the background, that is Arbon closing the gap. Is he going to go around the outside? Is Panda going to break early? They're going to go side by side. Round the outside goes the Red Bull. Off track though in the process. And losing another second towards the Aston Martin Elite. Now the two Alpines scrapping away in the background, and Panda is going backwards rather than forwards, and he's dropped behind his teammate now, Alpha Hypol, as we go in towards the final corner. Bit of a domino effect for Panda now being under pressure from Frobby as well. In the McLaren, fast lap of the race for Balabotan, 2.3 seconds towards Arbon, and there is Alpha Hypol making his way past Arbon and up at the second place. In the background, that is Panda defending against Frobby, and who has Shark up his inside going in towards the first chicane. Bit of contact in the background. It was Twuster and Ozan hitting the back of the McLaren, hitting the back of each other. But no damage, it seems. And we continue on. And at the moment, everyone within DRS range, apart from Alpha Hypol, because Balabotan has got a clean gap towards the Tier 3 champion this season. But Alpha Hypol from P3 on the grid, now in second place. His teammate from pole position down to P4, but he has maintained his position towards Shark and Frobby. So we all go through the chicane. 0.6 of a second is Arbon behind Alpha Hypol. In the background, Twuster is getting past Frobby as we go towards the final corner. So Frobby definitely losing time already on these softs. Seems like they're falling off after 5 laps, and he is going to pull into the pit lane. The McLaren from P6 is going to swap his softs for mediums or hards. We'll find out in a moment. Whilst the other McLaren of Lennon's is getting past Ozan to put himself in 7th place. It's hard going on to his teammates McLaren, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it to the end on those tires. 23 laps is a long way, even on the hards around Monza. .2 seconds now. Alpha Hypol unable to close the gap at this stage. It's stabilizing a little bit between our two race leaders. Looks like Balabotan using some battery as well. Now 2.3 between the two of them. Arbon once again going off track in the middle of Ascari. And that is Panda closing the gap a little bit, as the Red Bull probably had to lift mid-corner to avoid a track limit warning. .5 now as we go on to lap 6 of 27.22 to go. Still a long way. And in the background, Jesus and Jaden fighting it out. Here comes Panda, trying to go around the outside of Arbon and towards turn 1. And he will do exactly that. And he is back into a podium position, with Arbon dropping down to P4. But still very much in this DRS range, which is the most important thing at this stage of the race. Don't want to be fighting too much on the first stint. And Panda is now chasing after his own teammate. 0.5 of a second behind, although he's saving some battery, it seems, after having to use some to overtake Arbon. Definitely seems like he is running a little bit higher downforce compared to the ones around him. You can definitely tell as we come out of Parabolica now, going to start to finish straight. Gaps 0.8 of a second, as Arbon is the first driver to pick up a 3-second time penalty for track limits. He's also dropped himself out of DRS range. In the background, that is Jesus going up the inside of Ozan in towards turn 1. Side by side, the Williams around the outside, the Red Bull on the inside. Looks like Ozan is still in front as we go towards Curva Grande. But there is Jesus keeping his nose in on the inside. And now he does get the position. And the Williams is up at the 8th place. Now can try and chase after Lennons, although in this DRS train it's quite difficult to overtake, with everyone having the DRS down the start-finish straight. Oh, and Arbon looks like he might have made a mistake in the Lesmos, because he's dropped down to P6. And under pressure from Lennons as well, down to P7. That becomes now. Did he go slightly off track out of Lesmo 1? Because he has dropped a couple of positions. .8 seconds is now the gap between our two race leaders. And Panda has pulled to the pit lane on lap 7. So a very early pit stop, it seems, for the Alpine. In the background, that is Lennons, well, looking left and right to try and find a way past, which there he goes a little bit too deep in the process. Is that going to be able to convert it into a potential overtake for Lennons? Not quite, it seems. But Twisteri has dropped outside of DRS range towards Shark, who is now in P3. And Alpha Hypol has also been released. And Panda rejoins on the hards, around a second behind Froby, who pitted 3 laps earlier. And now it's 1.4, 1.5 Alpha Hypol. He is closing in on Balabotan, who might have used a little bit more of his tires in the early laps of this race. Because it looks like Alpha Hypol is now able to make up the time that is lost in the first 7 laps of this race. And into the pit lane goes our race leader, Balabotan in the Aston Martin, on to lap 9. So he is going to have to do 19 laps on the hards. It's going to be a long way to go. That might require some tire management later on at the end of this second stint, and hopefully his final stint. He should go out ahead of Froby and Panda. Yes, he does. As the Alpine is going to go to the inside of the McLaren to retake that position. And to get himself, hopefully, within 1 second of former race leader Balabotan. L5 was Shark, Arbon and Aaron. 4 drivers remaining out on track who still need to make their pit stop, having started on the mediums. So are we going to see a reaction from Alpha Hypol on this lap? Another 3-second time penalty for Aaron, as Panda has fully closed the gap towards Balabotan immediately. On the outlap of the Aston Martin, of course, tires still need to warm up. Look at the state of that front left of Alpha Hypol, by the way. It is starting to degrade very, very, very quickly indeed. But he's still staying out, and so is Shark. And so is Arbon, and so is Aaron. All going longer on these mediums compared to Balabotan, Panda and Froby, of course, started on the softs. He was going to go in earlier anyway. And that is the fastest lap of the race now for Panda with a 21.3. I don't think he has got the DRS. So Balabotan looking to put a bit of a gap between himself and Panda. And be in clean air to successfully perform the undercut. Well, I say undercut, he was in the lead when he pitted, but wants to have a significant gap when everyone else around him also makes their pit stop. Alpha Wall losing a lot of time on his mediums, it seems. Shark is very close to the back, almost making contact and cutting across the inside as Alpha Wall and picking up a 3-second time penalty in the process is our champion. And that is not great news for Alpha Wall. It's been a while since we've seen that. Seeing him picking up a time penalty and under a lot of pressure, it seems, of course. Well, no pressure in the championship. But he is very, very slow. Alright, look at that front left. Has he got a puncture? I wonder. I think he might have, which is why he is so slow. And that is a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane for good measure. And it's, well, getting from bad to worse for Alpha Wall. I wonder why he was going so slowly, but he got himself a front left puncture. And of course, not being able to slow him down in time. And now a 10-second time penalty to add on to that as he makes his pit stop. And he is definitely out of contention for the race win and potentially out of a podium as well. As he's rejoining behind Frobby and Panda and Balaboten, all of them. And Ozan also making his pit stop. And well, surprising to see, by the way, Shark's tires looking a lot better than Alpha Walls were looking. So has some better tire management, it seems. Arbon and Arbon also still staying out. Let's take a look at the tires of the Red Bull. A bit hard to tell, but there's definitely some graining on the inside there of the front left. And might be for Aaron as well, so I would assume these guys are coming into the pit lane quite soon. Which is going to give the race lead to Twosteri on the hards. And the Mercedes indeed is going to pull into the pit lane. So is Lennon's, having started on the hard. So definitely an early pit stop, potentially a double pit stop, a two-stop strategy for the McLaren. Arbon as well. Jaden into the pit lane. And Arbon now picking up a 10-second time penalty, making a double stack as well with his own teammate. Not great news for him at all. As Shark coming onto the hards, and yeah, there Lennon's going onto the mediums from the hards. He is definitely going for the two-stop. As they all rejoin behind Alpha Hype Wall, who had the tire advantage, but he also got himself a 13-second time penalty. So Balaboten in the net race lead by 0.8 of a second towards Panda, and then 4 seconds towards Frobby, and then another 3 seconds towards Alpha Hype Wall. And then that big train of cars who just made their pit stops. So only 2 drivers remain out on track to make their pit stop. It's Twosteri and Jesus. And for Jesus it is no surprise, because we have seen him pull off this strategy many times before this season. Where he starts on the hards, stays out long, and then switches to the mediums to have the advantage at the end of the race. They definitely are going to be staying out for a few more laps. Although I say that, but Twosteri is pulling into the pit lane from the in the Haas from the lead of this race. So I do wonder, is he going to go for the two-stop as well? And if he is, then why did he pit so late? Jesus is going to stay out, and he definitely is going for the one-stop. I can tell you that. As the grid is definitely a bit more spread out right now, as coming out of the pit lane is Twosteri ahead of Ozan and Arbon in P10. He's behind his teammate and has definitely lost quite a lot of positions with the strategy. But he will have the tire advantage towards the end, being on the newest hards. And the gap now between our 2 race leaders is 9 seconds. Jesus, of course, is going to be staying out. The man who hasn't picked up a 3-second time penalty in what is like 50 races now this year that he's done here in Revolution. Never has he ever gotten a 3-second time penalty for track limits in any of the races that he's done. It's super impressive, and it's looking likely that he is going to be doing that as well tonight. Same cannot be said for Ozan and Aaron. Once again, and both of them picking up a 3-second time penalty. And that's, well, 16 seconds or 19 seconds already for Aaron. Yes, it is. Seems to be struggling a lot around this track. Of course, he is a Tier 5 driver. And normally, when you race in Tier 3, when you're from Tier 5, to get a bit of experience, a bit of track time. But now, when it's the mystery race, well, the chance of it being Monza again in Tier 5 are, well, 1 in 10. But still always good to have some track time against one of the faster guys. 2 tiers above the one that you're currently in. Meanwhile, Balabotan, he's closed the gap by a further 2 seconds. 6.8 now towards Jesus, who has still got a few laps to go in this stint. And you can definitely tell that he's not pushing. He is trying to take these hards a long way. Around lap, what will it be? 16, 17. Might be the aim for our current race leader. Panda finds himself in the fight for the race win. With Balabotan, the gap's 4/10 of a second, and it's then 6 seconds towards Robbie, who is now getting overtaken by Al5 Ball, but he pushes the McLaren off track slightly on the braking. He thought he was ahead going into the brake show, but he clearly wasn't, and the McLaren driver was still there alongside, and they made contact, and Robbie got squeezed into the grass there, and they both lost out a bit of time there as well. Definitely not a race for Al5 Wall, it must be said tonight, as Arbon now retires from the race, of course, picking up plenty of penalties already with a 10 second for speeding the pit lane and a few more for track limits and being in 12th place. No surprise seeing him retire early on in this race, just after the halfway point. But definitely a messy race so far for Al5 Wall. Something you often see, the race after someone clinched the title. And for Al5 Wall, it is no different. He's got nothing to worry about. Because I still think Alpine will easily clinch the Constructors' Championship as well tonight, with Sauber not being present. But, of course, there is the bigger picture, which is the combined Constructors' Championship, where Alpine is still, well, in a realistic chance of winning it. Well, VCARB is quite far ahead, as Panda gets ahead of Balabotan for the net race lead. But VCARB is very clearly ahead and will be potentially as well after their Tier 2 result, which might end up be a 1-2 for the Racing Bulls. But still, Alpine wants to get as many points as possible. Kick Sauber's second place in the combined Constructors' Championship, and with them not being here tonight, they want to get as many points on them as well. But at the moment, Alpha High Wall might be looking at 11th place as it stands. And because Ozan only has 3 seconds, Alpha High Wall has 13, and the gap towards Jaden, well, it's around 11 seconds now, so he will be P10, P9, ahead of Ozan and Jaden, but way further down the order than what we're used to from our current champion. The fight still continuing on at the front between Panda and Balabotan. The gap is 2.5 seconds now towards Jesus, still staying out, going on to lap 17. And definitely expect him to pull to the pit lane at the end of this lap. Tires are starting to degrade as well with the front left. Into the pit lane now comes Robbie after doing 11 laps on the hards. Going for the 2-stop. Is he going to go for the hards again? I think so. Yes, he is, to make it to the end of the race, and he drops out in 11th place. But he will have the tire advantage, and having seen the puncture for Alpha High Wall on his medium stint, who knows what tire troubles the others might get themselves into at the very end of this race. Because the likes of Panda, well, he has to do 18 laps or 19 laps on the hards, which is a very long way. He might struggle towards the end, he might get a puncture himself. So I do wonder if he's going to be able to make the end on these stars. Just ahead of him is Jesus, who is on 16 lap old hards. But, well, look at the rears. The rear left specifically, the front left as well. The craning is there, and looks like he is going to come into the pit lane on this lap. Yes, he is. Our race leader Jesus pulls into what will be his only pit stop of the race, and it's going to have to do 10 laps on the mediums, which is very reasonable. It will drop him behind Jaden, and he will come out in P10. We'll make that P9 because Lennon pulls into the pit lane as well. After only doing 6 laps on the mediums. Both McLarens going for the 2-stop. Jaden as well into the pit lane. So it's only going to be P8 then for Jesus on brand new mediums. And his first target will be Ozan, who does have a 3-second time penalty. After that, it's going to be the Red Bull of Arbon. But he is for 6 seconds up the road, and that is a 3-second time penalty for Mbala Botan, and that is not great news for him, because Panda ahead of him does not have that time penalty, so they might be in trouble. Well, Mbala Botan might be in trouble when he fights it out, but like I said earlier, well, Mbala Botan as well, they pitted very early onto the hards. They are definitely going to struggle at the end of the race if they want to make the one-stop work. So I don't think it is a bad shout to say that Shark has a legitimate chance of still winning this race. I'll say that now with 8 laps to go, and we'll find out what it's going to be at the end. Balabotan then gets now ahead of Panda as they swap positions once more, but there's contact between the two, as the Panda outbrakes himself a little bit going in towards turn 1. But no damage done, fortunately for them. And that is Jesus getting ahead of Ozan. And that is because Ozan is also making another pit stop. He did 8 laps on the mediums. And he is going to go for another set of mediums to make it to the end. He's going to have to do 9 laps on them. So he has to do a little bit of tar saving. So shouldn't be much of a problem as he comes out in P10. Ahead of Jaden, who is coming into the pit lane once more. As didn't he just made his pit stop? I think he did, but he switched onto a used set of hards. That is, well, a strange moment there. Maybe a little bit of a bug by the game, or he selected the wrong tire set. Bit interesting. As he comes into the pit lane for another pit stop, and definitely will be finishing at P11 at best. Unless there is some retirements later on. And there it is, there's your answer. Balabotan and Panda Botan to the pit. Oh, and a 10-second time penalty for Balabotan. Something that we have seen not once this season. It's been multiple times where the Aston Martin picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But as expected, both of them having to make a second pit stop, which has now put Alpha Hive Wall into the lead of this race. But, well, he's got a 13-second time penalty, and Shark is in a great position to win this race. Which would be an incredible turnaround from last week, where he was involved in not one incident, but 2 separate incidents, with both Arbon and Tuasteri. And he's got a time penalty for both of them, I believe, so 8 seconds total being added to his race time. He finished in 8th place as well. And it was gonna be P4, I believe. But now he has got himself into a position where he's got a legitimate chance of actually winning the race for the first time ever. Which would be quite something. He's also closing the gap towards Alpha Hive. He's got a comfortable gap towards Arbon. He is in P3. Arbon is in P3. And he himself has got a fairly decent chance of finishing on the podium here. He will certainly be ahead of Alpha Hive Wall with that 13-second time penalty. Of course, the likes of Jesus, Balabotan and Panda will be putting the pressure on, being on those newer mediums. But those will start to struggle towards the end, and Balabotan especially with that 10-second time penalty, will definitely not finish ahead of the Red Bull. But he also has to make these tires work, because he has to do 7 more laps. It's going to be 16 total, which is, well, he just did 17, I think. It is doable, but will require some tire management in these final few laps. It is going to be very interesting though. And Alpha Wall, he is going to have to do 17 laps, and those front left, it doesn't look great with 7 laps to go. You can already see some graining starting to form on that front left. So I'm fearing for his front left for these final couple of laps. We saw him getting a puncture on the front left on the mediums on his first stint. He's going to have to be careful as well with his tires. So Shark then, he's got a 1 lap tire advantage. He did some better tire management as well on the first stint. And he's going to be closing in towards Alpha Wall to take the lead in a few moments time. Panda and Balabotant fighting it out. Here comes the Alpine to the inside and position gained. And Panda now finds himself in P5. And well, almost within 13 seconds of his teammate Alpha Hype Wall. That's where Alpha Wall at the moment will finish in 5th place, I think. With Balabotant's penalty and Frobby being a further 7.5 seconds behind in the McLaren. 4th and 5th is what Alpine is looking at, but it's going to be 22 points total. Well, a further 10 points in the sprint make that 32 added towards their current lead, which is around 20 points. And well, there's the math, and that is going to be championship secured if it finishes like this. Commentary sounds very good, almost like you've done this in real life. Well, don't get me started on that story, but yes, it is. But thank you very much, Robin. Really appreciate those words. I know you mean it. So, but yes, I did do commentary in real life. I mentioned it in chat, Tier 3, last weekend at Lelystad for a 24-hour karting event. Certainly was one of the best experiences I have had, and that was a lot of fun. And hopefully will not be the only time. #1 fan, of course. Always. Will always say that. Shark then, 4/10 of a second now. Still closely up. He doesn't need to overtake, of course, with that penalty that Alpha Hype Wall has since day 1. Yeah, sure thing. Since the early YSR days, when I started doing commentary around 2.5 years ago. Day 2, fair enough. That's close enough, yeah. We'll keep it at that. Jesus now has closed 2 seconds towards R1. He's still putting the pressure on the Red Bull. He will be gaining time in the final few laps on these mediums, so R1's podium is not a guarantee. Because Panda and Balabotan are also coming for the Red Bull driver's position. Gonna win your 2nd title this season. The upcoming season in ESR, you mean? Well, I'm gonna have to need some luck to achieve that. I definitely had some last season, in season 10. Of course, I won some races as well, which it's not always mainly luck. As we see a fight for the race lead with Shark trying to go into the grass to get ahead of Alpha Hype Wall. Why luck? Well, there's some quick drivers, and with the calendar right now, we've got some interesting races on our hands. Some special races, and I'm not too sure how that's going to go. There's some tracks on there that really aren't my favorite, but I reckon it's going to be fun. spoil round 9, 10, 11. I'm not going to spoil those rounds. You'll get the info on that a week before. But it's 3 races, 3 short races, I can tell you that. But it's going to be different though than any other race. Yeah, he decides the tracks. Welcome Barney to the stream, good to have you around. Unfortunate yesterday in Tier 2, not 25%. Well, you're going to get the info about that later on. But we've got 3 laps to go in this race. The fight is still going on between our 2 race leaders. Jesus now got himself almost within 1 second of Arbon. Panda is closing the gap as well, 2.5 seconds behind right now. Balabon is still following him by half a second. But with that 10-second time penalty, we'll be looking at P6 at best. Probably is almost that 10 seconds behind. How does Bolton always bottle it somehow? Well, it's definitely something that has happened a couple of times this season. He got the pole position 4 times and he hasn't finished on the podium in any of those races, in any of the races this season. Just seems like he's always involved in some sort of incident, or he gets himself a 10-second time penalty for speeding the pit lane. Oh, well, I should say that he goes off track there through the first lesson. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Of course, I want to see him do well. He deserves a podium place, a race win maybe. But he's always involved in something, which is really unlucky. Sometimes, and sometimes through fault of his own, of course. Getting the 10-second time penalty. It's not the first time we've seen that. But we've got 2 laps to go. Alpha Wall Stars somehow still in, well, I wouldn't say great shape if you look at the front left. If I had to guess what percentage it would be on, definitely in the 70s or the 80s. Probably more towards the 80s. But, well, he is going to have to nurse those tires towards the end. I'm still surprised he's able to maintain his lead ahead of Shark. Who's got much better tires if you look at the front left. Little to no graining. And the gap towards Arbon has come down to 3 seconds, and he is going to be under pressure from Jesus now for these final 2 laps. This is going to turn in an interesting fight between those 3. Arbon, Jesus and Panda for the final spot on the podium. Well, I'll say 2nd place with our Alpha Highball time penalty. Is Jesus finally going to go for the move, or is he just going to wait until the final straight? I think he is going to do the latter. As we go in towards the Ascari chicane. Shark searching for his first win in Revolution, at least in Tier 3. So there's another 3-second time penalty there for Balabotan, which is going to reduce his chances of getting in that 6th place. But Shark has been around for a while in Tier 3, has finished on the podium a few times, but never on the top step. It looks like he is going to change that tonight, as he is closing the gap towards Alpha Highball. And he's going to go to the outside, but not going to go for the move. In the background, Jesus has found a way past Arbon to put himself in what will be 2nd place. And they've almost fully closed the gap towards Alpha Highball and Shark. And we're going to have to keep an eye out on that front left, because it is not looking good at all. Somehow he's still in 1st place, on track at least. As I almost fall out of my chair. She's still 1.5 seconds behind. Well, Shark is going to have to get a move on. He can't lose too much time behind Alpha Highball unless, or else he will be under pressure from Jesus for the race win. Always a dark horse in any race he's in. He is not quite within DRS range. Well, he is now, but he hasn't got the DRS. But we've got a few more corners to go. Alpha Highball leads ahead of Shark. And Shark no! With a 3-second time penalty on the final lap. And he just has thrown away the victory here. You cannot ride it. And that is so unfortunate. And Alpha Highball, I think he picked him a penalty himself as well. Through the Ascari chicane. He is rounding the final corner. He has made... Look at those stars. They've survived it somehow. But Alpha Highball is going to cross the line in 1st place. Shark is going to get ahead of him. But it's Jesus who wins. Finally again this season. And Jesus wins the Italian Grand Prix. Looks like something's gone on in the background as well. But wow. Arbon in 2nd. Panda in P3 on the podium. well done to him. He has improved a lot indeed, and a great podium pace, although he did start from pole position. But, well, great result for him regardless. Shark in P4. It should have been P1 for Shark, but getting a 3-second time penalty on the final lap in the final sector must be incredibly frustrating for the Mercedes. Al5, well, somehow inside the top 5 with all those penalties. Tour Sterry in 6th place, Lennons in 7th, Balabotan in 8th, Frobby in 9th place, Ozan in 10th, and Jaden will pick up the final 2 points in P11. But wow, what an end to this race that was. But mixed feelings, because of course Jesus, well done to him from I think 7th place or 8th place on the grid. And it's his first win of the season, in fact. He has won 2 championships. He's won in every season he's participated in, I think. And good to see him finally back on the top step once more. The man second in the championship. His 4th podium of the season. And well, what a comeback drive with the alternative strategy. What a result. Albon in 2nd place. Did get overtaken by the Williams, but still has to be satisfied with another good podium. And Panda as well, even though he started from pole position. A great race from him, and he has shown some incredible pace, as well as Jesus picks up everything here with the travel today and the most overtakes. And Panda P3 and Shark in P4. And I think it is confirmed that Alpine have won the Constructors' Championship. So congratulations to them. This season certainly has been, well, a dominant display for Alpha Wall. But Panda definitely put in the work tonight as well to get some great points for the team. So great performance from both drivers and a very well-deserved championship. But Jesus definitely deserves Driver today, I think, from 8th place on the grid to win here at Monza. But wow, what an end to this race. Definitely did not expect this outcome with 5 laps to go. But there you have it. Jesus still finds a way to come out on top, which he always does somehow. You can never rule him out of the victory. And tonight I may have ruled him out a little bit too early, because in the end he did come through to steal away the win on the final lap. And certainly shows why he is a 2-time world champion. But Al5 Wall, he secured the Drivers' Championship last week, and this week he wraps up the 2nd championship in the Constructors alongside his teammate Panda. So great result from the Alpines, and congratulations on the championship. Either way, that's the end then of round 14 of the season, the mystery race. Next week we will return for one final time for the season finale at Zandvoort. Both championships have been wrapped up, but so it's going to be a race mainly for fun. Let's see who is going to be taking the victory there at Zandvoort. But that's it from me tonight. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for tuning into the stream. I'll be uploading the highlights tomorrow afternoon, so be sure to check that out as well. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon next week for the season finale at Zandvoort. Enjoy your evening, and goodbye.